Big 12 was a dirty word, just all encompassing. The Big 12 itself was a dirty word yesterday. When you are, I was trying to search for a metaphor. Forgive me, this is the best I could do. I'm in the middle of a Netflix series right now, Ratched, after Nurse Ratched, but she's got her own series now. So I'm in the middle of that right now. So like, if I've had a bad day today, I haven't, it's been a pretty good day, but if I've had a bad day, if you're ever in the middle of a Netflix series or you're in the middle of a show, even when things are going terrible, man, at least at the end of the day, I'll get to go home, I'll get to watch that. And so it's just something, it's a light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe it's your pet. You get to go home and see your dog. Hopefully you have a loving family. You go home and see your loving family. Whatever the case may be. You hope to have a light at the end of your tunnel. And in the Big 12, that light is supposed to be. Even as Louisiana beats Iowa State, even as Arkansas State beats Kansas State, even as Coastal Carolina for the second year in a row beats Kansas and Oklahoma State struggles against Tulsa, all the nastiness of your day aside, you're supposed to be able at the end of the day to come home and see Oklahoma pound someone by 50, and you're supposed to see Texas take care of business. OU and Texas, oh my. Yesterday, Oklahoma, after leading 35-14 against the aforementioned Kansas State Wildcats, most recently known for falling to Arkansas State. Don't even try to apply the transitive property here. It will only confuse you. But most recently, that's when you saw Kansas State. Well, they went into Norman, trailing 35-14, and inexplicably won a game yesterday, 38-35. If you watch a lot of SEC football, this would have been very familiar to you. Just 1 year ago, Georgia was favored by between 3 and 4 touchdowns against South Carolina. And Georgia outdid South Carolina in every box score way imaginable. But they were -4 turnovers, and Carolina stunned them at home. In Athens, stunned them. This was Georgia, South Carolina. It just happened about 1,000 miles to the west, and it was in Oklahoma instead. Oklahoma owned the box score. Oklahoma -4 turnovers. Oklahoma loses the game. Oklahoma fans are irate at, among other things, this man, Lincoln Riley, their head coach. And I want to tell you something. I don't blame you. A lot of times, I'm of the opinion that you need to pump the brakes. It's never as bad as it looks. But listen, like I was talking to Colin about before the show, this is not the NFL. The NFL, everything about the league is structured to just push everything to the middle. Everything's supposed to be 8-8. Everything's supposed to be parity-driven. This is college football. That's not the way it is here. The sport is so heavily tilted towards Oklahoma over a team like Kansas State that you should never lose to them. 10 times out of 10, Oklahoma should be favored by 4 touchdowns over K-State, and the only thing you should be sweating at the end is whether they're going to cover, not whether they're going to hold on for dear life and win, which they did not. This offensive line was incredibly bad yesterday, inexplicably bad. I would contend I should be able, when you think about the nature of this sport and how heavily it's tilted towards the Oklahomas of the world, I should be able to shave the top 10 players off your roster. You should still have no problem with Kansas State. That wasn't the case yesterday. I know football is a lot more nuanced than that, but at a 50,000-foot level, I think that principle applies. So, Urban Meyer, famously, well, Urban Meyer was already famous, but he goes on air yesterday afterwards and said, Oklahoma's done. They're out of the playoff. And then some people said, they lost to Kansas State last year and they still made it. Well, there are many things 2020 is, but 2019 is not one of them. So I think he's right, actually. Now, Texas is still alive, somehow. 63-56 was the final there. In overtime, no less. They had to come from behind to stun Texas Tech. You heard me right. 15-point come-from-behind win in the final 3 minutes. I am not punting on Texas. Now, don't get me wrong. This was an atrocious game. We had a Texas Tech onside kick. We had a blocked punt. It was a muff punt for a touchdown. But, hey, Texas did some of those same things, thankfully. What you may think, if you didn't watch this game, and judging by the numbers, a lot of you did not, is you may think these offenses just went up and down the field all day yesterday. Neither of these teams surpassed 480 yards of total offense. That wasn't the kind of game it was. It was hideous. There were special teams miscues all over the place. It looked like pinball, except they were wearing helmets and they were actually real-life human beings there. But it was really weird. It was like kind of one of those 1 in a million type games, but they count. So Texas got the win. I still like Texas to win the Big 12. I just think that with every one of these weeks, where in a year where style points are going to matter so much, every one of these weeks that happen, where you have these inexplicable results. I mean, Oklahoma loses, Texas wins, but that's a stink that remains on you for a little while. The Big 12 title hopes are still there. The college football playoff hopes, I don't necessarily know. There's a lot to fix out there too, but man, at least they got the win. Because trust me, it could be a whole lot worse. But the Big 12 right now is a rough product to watch, top to bottom. TCU, yeah, I gotta rub my temples when I talk about that. I don't even know how to explain what happened there yesterday. I mean, that Max Duggan is cleared, and he doesn't play the first half. And then he does play the second half, leading one to surmise he had to have been suspended, and that hasn't been confirmed, but I don't know what other explanation there is, and it was too little too late, and they end up losing to Iowa State. So I say all that because I just imagine the Oregons of the world who are sitting out there listening to everyone tell them there are not going to be enough spots at the playoff table for you, even if you go 7-0. There just aren't going to be, because you think about the SEC, and you think about the Big Ten, and you think about the ACC and the Big 12. Well, the more you see this, are we thinking about the Big 12? I don't know. It's still a long shot. I just think the shot is a lot shorter than it was yesterday. And the other thing to think about here is, you could have one of these crazy round robin type deals where like Alabama beats Georgia in a few weeks, and then Georgia beats Florida, and then they meet in Atlanta, and then Florida can't go to Atlanta. And you got 3 or 4 one-loss teams in a conference, 2 loss teams in a conference. How are you processing all that? I don't know. Still a long way away. I think it's pretty foolish to be talking about college football playoff scenarios right now.